Hello, hello, beautiful community. Welcome to another episode of this. I am so excited to have on the podcast today someone that Rachel and I call one of our good friends, Melissa Harris, who is a business and sales strategist. She is pure magic, and we're so excited for you to get to experience that today. Thank you for being on here today, Melissa.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So, as always, we dive right in. And our first question that I like to ask you is when was the first time you felt something either spiritually or felt like you were connected to something bigger than yourself?
Well, I will say that I was raised in a pretty traditional Christian family, and I definitely had spiritual experiences and felt a spiritual connection growing up. But there were a lot of things about that really organized religious setting that also I didn't resonate with. So there were a lot of parts of it, the connection to something bigger than me, the connection to God. I've always felt that throughout my life. And I would say intuition plays a big part in that. And I think that's where my line started to get crossed is there were some things that I wanted to experience or experiment with, or even kind of going down the lines of intuition that in some very traditional Christian environments are viewed as negative or something to stay away from. So it was kind of this crossover between, yes, I knew something like that was present in there and I felt it, but there was also more that I wanted to experience. And in my later 20s, I started to experience, I feel like, what is a different connection to God than I had growing up. I view it as the same God and that same source of love, but I started to experience it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's super relatable for our audience. And I love to hear if any moments come to mind where either before your 20s or after those moments where you remembered, okay, this is how I'm connected to God.
Yeah, I would say, well, there was one time that I was in the car and one of my best friends lived in California and I was in Minnesota, and I was driving and I had this immediate, like, sudden feeling that something really bad happened to her, or that she was in danger. And I actually pulled my car over and I tried to call her. I tried to text her and I couldn't get a hold of her and didn't hear from her for a few hours. And her sister reached out to me shortly after, I had texted my friend, and let me know that she was in a really serious car accident where they were driving along the freeway along the coast, and the car actually went off of a cliff. And miraculously, they couldn't believe it. She had some back injuries and things like that, but they were able to walk out of there. And so I had a few situations like that where I definitely was like, there was a connection to something higher. I was definitely alerted of something. And then did end up happening that in fact something had happened to her. So that is like the one memory that always sticks out to me, that I think it was very distinct to me. And then at the same time, I was like, where do I bucket this? What was that? What was that that let me know something had happened to her and be prompted to reach out to her, and even pray for her, thinking that there was something going on. So that was probably one of my most distinct early on memories before I had really sorted out and done some self discovery on what some of these things meant to me.
I love that so much. We actually learned that in Reiki. I don't know if I brought that up in Reiki too, but in Reiki Masters, we learned that's one of the Claire gifts. It's called Claire empathy, and it's being able to feel, even if you're not like in the same vicinity as them. As you mentioned, she was in California, you were in Minnesota, but being able to feel and sense that something was up before it happens. It's like being super in tune with your intuition, which is so cool to see. And I love that you took it to the next step of being like, okay, yes, like this is something that like I made that connection, but I know that it's something like bigger than me and more powerful than me that made that happen.
Yes, 100%. And I would say I've always been a really highly sensitive, empathetic person. And so I didn't know of any of these terms until I was much older and until I did some digging to figure myself out. But looking back, being able to even just tell when someone needed something or when they were sad or even like what was bothering them, those were all things that just happened. And I just kind of flowed with it, thinking maybe that happens to everybody, or maybe not knowing exactly what it was, but like you said, definitely knowing it was connected to something bigger and higher than me.
Hmm. Something that's so special about you is that, well, there's a lot of things, but one of the things that like is so mind-boggling to me is like you are one of the most highly sensitive people I know and so intuitive. And when I first met you, that was not what I was expecting at all because you are like a businesswoman and so successful. Like Rachel and I were so grateful that we met you in that group coaching program because you helped expand us so much. Like there would be so many conversations where Rachel's like, look what's possible. Like Melissa's doing it this way and like Melissa's had success doing it
Yeah.
this way and like just talking to you of how it just always came with like such flow and such grace is something like we always come back to. So I'm curious like what was that initial spark that allowed you to start your own business in the first place?
Well, I love that you bring that up because a lot of it has been not graceful and trial and error behind the scenes of me completely physically burning out in my corporate career. So before starting my business, I was in medical device and software sales. So I was at one of the top tech companies on the NASDAQ. I was their top performer. I was go, 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 was working with all men, completely male dominated environment. I had never had a female or woman boss or really many women around me. But I think I really learned kind of the art of the politics of corporate and then the production side. So being that really high achiever and putting out amazing results while also understanding how to interact internally within your organization to get yourself where you want to be. I credit my dad with a lot of that. He's a very savvy entrepreneur businessman. So a little bit of it is in my blood and genetics. I have to give him credit for that. When you're like 7 years old and you want to have a sleepover and you learn how to put together a business case of why you should be able to go to the sleepover. I already checked with mom, her parents will be home. So some of it I grew up around. And I loved that side of my career, but it really, really physically burned me out. Being that highly sensitive person, it took a huge toll. I think a lot of what I learned to do was shut down my emotions and become super factual, leave your feelings at the door type of motto, get in there, do the thing, get out. And I actually had a pretty severe allergic reaction where I went into full anaphylactic shock and ended up in the emergency room. I actually drove myself there and ended up passing out in the lobby. And this nurse found me and saw me. And I had this moment where I was like in the bed once I kind of came to it. I was sending emails to my clients, like I should be back up and running in 2 hours. And it was like this moment of, what are you doing? You almost died from this anaphylactic allergic reaction, which I worked with more of a natural doctor. And it was high sensitivity to caffeine and then just stress hormones create histamines in your body. And I was in a really stressful work environment at that time, very toxic, very high pressure, high stress. And so it kind of all fell apart for me in order to learn how to do it in a new way. So I love the business aspect of it. I've honed these skills. I love to see women be successful in business and make money, grow their businesses. But I was also like, there has to be a little bit of a better way.
Totally.
So it literally all had to fall apart. And that was kind of my wake up call of, I've run my body into the ground. This isn't sustainable. What's next? So I took a little bit of time off to decompress, just heal my body, get those stress levels down, which then allowed me to get clarity into what I wanted to do next. And so it was, I look back and everything definitely happens for a reason, but I feel like I had to go through that, let it all fall apart and see what comes back together.
Definitely. And I feel like a lot of us when we go through these type of spiritual awakenings, sometimes it like really pushes us until we like get that big message and sometimes
Oh,
a
yeah.
very uncomfortable way. But I also find with healers that it often happens in the physical body just because we work so much on like the body. Yeah,
Yeah.
when we heal. I'm curious to hear what were those messages of clarity that you started to receive when you were healing?
Well, the day that I quit my corporate job, I'm making all this money. I'm kind of top of my game. I'm on the trajectory to be a VP. That's my goal. I'm headed towards it. I'm at this amazing startup, all these things. And I really felt like that internal voice being like, you need to leave, and no backup plan. This isn't like you go get a similar job and then that's how you leave. It was very clear, like, just leave. And I kind of had this feeling like I was done with that chapter of my life. So I quit my job. And when I got home that day, I got three messages in my email and LinkedIn inbox for job offers that, these companies were very similar to the one I had just left. They had no idea that I had just quit or that I was a free agent, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And it was like three dream companies all reached out to me. Wow. And I had followed some of Lacey Phillips' To Be Magnetic work just from learning the energetics of how some of this stuff works. And I remember her talking about essentially when you do leave something big, like you feel like you're supposed to do, oftentimes you'll get what she calls tests. And I was like, oh my gosh, here it is. Here are my tests. Am I going to freak out now that I'm home and unemployed essentially? And am I going to jump on the opportunity and, get rid of all the clarity that I had received that I should just quit and not go do anything? So that was my first kind of test that led to more clarity. When I turned those down, other doors opened. I met other people. I found a course that I wanted to take that talked a lot on how to be a coach. And that took me down that path of I can package up all of my skills that I'm currently using and sharing with women in corporate and turn that into an offering. So it came again with some tests and some like hard things to turn down, but I would say the more that happened, the more clear I got and the more opportunities opened on the other end of that.
Yeah, I love that. I was just thinking the exact same thing. And it's funny because that creates so much magnetism, and then it just like catapults you like so much closer. And like you said, like those doors open.
Yes.
What was the niche that you figured? It was women in business, but then specifically, how did you come up with your offering? Because you worked in, medical tech, which is so different than where you are now. So how did you know that that's what you wanted to go into?
Well, that part kind of fell into my lap in a way. I had women that I had worked with at these companies, and even some men that I worked with as well that had gone on to new companies, or they were trying to achieve some goal in the office, like they were trying to get promoted or try to get this recognition or move up in their career or land this job in an interview. And I had a handful of women that I worked with just reach out to me and say, hey, I'm kind of up against this situation at work, or I'm trying to close this big deal. What angle should you think we should take? And so I started doing strategy with people, and it was just like, okay, come meet me for lunch and let's talk through this. And they would go on and get amazing results. And then they'd say, hey, I've got a friend who's over at, Target Corp or this company, SAP. Would you meet with her and help her out? She's amazingly talented, but she's not getting any looks in the office. And some of that ties back to what I mentioned earlier, you got to have a little bit of that producer, a lot of that producer in the corporate space, AKA getting good results, a high achiever, but you have to be equal parts politician and understand how to advocate and network for yourself inside of your company. And there's a balance and like we talk in our lingo, a shadow aspect and a light aspect to both of those things. So it was like, okay, hey, could you help this person? Could you help that person? And I thought, this is it. This is what I love doing. I can package up all of my skills and put this out there as an offering. So that's what I started with. And that's where I launched it with a retreat called Woo and Do, because my whole take on it was you need a little bit of the woo woo. You've got to get in touch with yourself. You've got to know how to process your emotions and have that spiritual connection. So you stay in alignment with what you're doing. And then you have to have the strategic action to really go out there and take intelligent next steps in achieving whatever the goal is that you want to achieve. So it morphed into this thing. And I will say it's grown a lot and transitioned a lot since then, but that was how it started. And that part of it was pretty natural, I have to say, unlike everything else where it was like, oh, we're going to completely burn you down and you have to fall apart and lose everything. That was a little bit, nice, because it was like that just progressed naturally.
Totally. And that's when you know, because it's when it flows and you're no longer pushing against those resistances and trying like so hard, like while you're on the hospital bed, like, oh, don't worry, like I'll be back at work in 2 hours.
Yes, exactly. And that was, my sister was the one who pointed that out to me. She was like, just think about that for a minute. You were basically, your life was literally on the line, but you mentally were associating your livelihood with your job and
Mm,
almost putting that on a higher pedestal than your actual physical well-being. And so that was definitely a huge wake-up call for me.
totally. And we've done a lot of work with like limiting beliefs. And to me that like comes, and that's cool that your sister, of course, sisters are so in tune with us and they know
Oh yeah.
like how you can boil that down to what is that one thing that was kind of blocking me. And sometimes I find that like with these limiting beliefs that they're really grooved in there. Like we've had a lot of lifetimes trying to release them, and it's hard to, even though we can identify them. So I'd love to hear what this limiting belief is for you and how you've been working on it.
Yeah, I think like as I go deeper in my entrepreneurial journey, which I think honestly is parallels my spiritual journey quite a bit. I think everyone, whether it's your entrepreneurial journey or a relationship or motherhood or whatever it is, typically there's something that kind of parallels or is the outlet for a lot of your spiritual growth. And so I've had 1.5 million limiting beliefs pop up over the last handful of years that I've been doing this. But I think a lot of it just comes down to worthiness and self-love and really fully coming to grips with the fact that I can create whatever I want. It's just, I have to get to a place where I really believe that I deserve it
Mm,
and that I don't get in my own way of sharing my gift. And I think that's a tough one for women because it can show up as your relationship with your body. It can show up as how you communicate. It can just show up as the fact that you're a woman. And should you be in all these male dominated environments, sharing insights and telling them how to get ahead in their career? So I think that it would boil down to that. But again, it can pop up as so many different things in your life. So it's just, for me, it's been constantly questioning those things. And working with amazing people like you and Rachel, I had the chance to work with the two of you and having that other set of eyes on things to say, this is what we see. Because sometimes you don't even see your own stuff. So
totally.
having someone else that can help you through those in whatever the scenario that it is popping up in for you is one of the most helpful things for anybody who's wanting to grow spiritually or grow in their business.
Definitely. And I love how you said that entrepreneurship and your spirituality are like hand in hand. That's something that like Rachel and I are realizing more and more is like your business, it's so hard because like your business is like you always. So it's like if
Yeah,
you're going through something physically or mentally, it like mirrors what's happening in your business directly. And I'd love to
totally.
hear, when was that time in your business where you felt like, wow, like I just monumentally have jumped over this block and now have like created this success that I wanted? Like, or was it more of like a slow, gradual kind of build of everything?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that it was honestly a little bit of both. Like at the beginning, it was just a slow build. I had many moments where I was like, what am I doing? I should just, like, I've rested and healed. I should just go back to corporate. Like, I can handle it differently now. I'll be totally okay. I won't go back into burnout. It'll be guaranteed money. It'll be so much better. So I had plenty of those days. But then I had these moments where, I'd be working with, or even in the beginning of my business, even landing a client was felt like a huge win. And then seeing them through transformation to the end where, one of my clients had a $250,000 month with the sales strategy that we put together for their agency. It was their best month in 10 years since the business had been founded. And that was a moment for me. It was a slow build to that moment, but then having them email me that, and they sent me a gift and that said on the card, best month in 10 years. That was like a big moment where I thought, oh my gosh, this is real revenue. This is real meaningful change in a business, not to mention all the clients they then supported who paid them that money. That was an amazing moment for me. And that took just having the opportunity to work with that client, but then believing in myself that I could actually do it. Because there were those moments of fear of like, oh, I should just pass on this, or, maybe someone else can do this better than I can. So those were some big wins for me early on that I think really helped me keep pushing. And just more than that, wanting to work with more people and help them see those kind of results.
Yeah, I think like constantly coming back to your heart-centered intention is so important, because if you were just to focus on like, yeah, I want my clients to like be successful in the forms of monetary gains, which is like important and amazing, but it's not truly what your soul wants and thrives off of. It's like, no, like what is that soul intention that I come back to? And then that's when you've seen like the catastrophic results.
Oh, 100%. And I love that you bring that up because most of my clients, and I've worked with CEOs of top agencies, I've worked with professional athletes, I've worked with sales reps, female entrepreneurs in the spiritual space. My clients literally range from psychics who offer animal readings to professional athletes. So the range is all over the board. But one thing that they all have in common is that typically whatever they come in thinking they want to work on or achieve is not really what we end up working on. They end up achieving it, but getting there is somewhere totally different than they thought they needed to kind of be focusing on to get there. So it's honing in on those limiting beliefs and realizing every single human has them. And it's just kind of a part of life. And when we normalize them and look at them a little more objectively, they don't hold as much of a charge. And then we can strategize around how to manage the emotion. You get to feel it, you do all of that, and then you move it out of the way. And we've got strategy to back you up. So I think that's been really cool for me to see too. Like some of the most successful people by our culture standards, by the world standards, and even who have just done amazing things, they all have these same limiting beliefs.
Yeah, that's what's so wild about it. And I'm really curious to know, so you have a broad range of all these clients, and I think a lot of our entrepreneur community, when they're trying to start their own business, they're like, I can't even attract clients like within my own niche. So I'd love to hear from you, like, how do you attract your clients knowing that you have like a broad range that you can go to? How are you able to communicate with them like really clearly so that they know what they're going to get out of working with you?
Yeah. So first things first is I'm not necessarily an online business. I've grown my business totally through referrals.
Hmm.
So all of my clients, I've not had a website up or an Instagram page that they can go to find me and, see my work and all of that. So really, truly, it's been a dedicated focus on understanding what my skill set is. I've got my set skill set that I know if someone's dealing with one of these things, I can come in and help you. So sticking to what I'm good at and what I know I can really help support you in creating change around. So that's my first step. And then whether it's through referral or chance, or I've had people find me in all kinds of ways. So really anything's possible. And once I'm meeting with somebody, it's really like, I would say we get to the strategy stuff later. It's spending time on the front end, really using my intuition to figure out what their true roadblock is. Like what that true, kind of anchor, like I view them like anchors. We all have things that are anchoring us down, and they're going to show up in all parts of your life. And typically it's that scenario where it's like, this is the same story that I keep reliving, just different characters.
Totally.
So I do a lot of like more intuitive based connecting with somebody right out of the gate. And I'll usually know pretty quickly, like, yes, this is something I can help you with. And then I bring in based on my intuition and what I'm picking up on, I explain to them in business strategy terms what we can do. While also letting them know that there's going to be a little bit of emotional work that I require when I'm taking on a client and that I want my clients to be open to in order to get the best transformation. So sticking to my skill sets and where I know I can support someone, and then using my intuition to figure out how that best looks. Because at the end of the day, clients are coming to us for help and guidance and insight. We don't always know when we're, looking for help what specifically we need help on. A lot of times, like I said earlier, it's something deeper, something different that we're just blind to.
Totally. Did you, especially in the beginning of your journey with going into this, and I love that you had that clear transparency of like, if you're down for emotional work or not, like, this isn't going to work. It's so
Yeah.
important. But do you ever feel, especially with a lot of people who identify with masculine energy, that resistance? And do you feel like oftentimes the clients I get are mirrors for me of still lessons that I have to work through and push
Yeah.
past resistances? So I'd love to hear if you've had any of those moments with the masculine energy that you've had to work through, especially living in that masculine dominated culture. I'm sure you had to break through a few of those.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. That's definitely something that comes up. And that's why I do also differentiate between clients that are willing to dip their toe in the water of those conversations and those that just aren't ready for it.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with people too and let them know, yeah, we can do exclusively strategy and I can give you this kind of document, but you're going to get so much more out of it if you understand why you're approaching it with the attachment or desperation to revenue that you've currently got going on. Because no matter what strategy I hand you, unless you deal with this, we're not going to get these results to the fullest capacity possible. So a lot of times it's really explaining to someone in business terms, basically like your ROI on investing and exploring your emotions is going to be tenfold over just simply executing on the strategy. And that usually people are like, okay, if I got a good ROI and it's someone who's running on very masculine energy, they're going to be open to that. But I think absolutely a lot of the people that I work with are complete mirrors for me, and they've shown me either those areas in my life that I'm doing something similar or that I've got a similar pattern. It's just showing up a little bit differently. So I would say that's how I try to communicate the importance of it. And some people just, that's not their thing, or they're not ready for it, or their mind just operates so much differently than that. And that's okay too. But I think the investment in exploring your emotions along with the business side of things, like I said, you're going to get a positive ROI every time on that.
Definitely. And I love this intuitive piece that has always been natural to you. And I'm sure you've even found those moments where like, oh, I've been doing this the whole entire time is using my intuition. That's why I'm so successful. But I know that, as we proceed on our spiritual journey and we get more interested in the things and we get witchier by the day, that starts to evolve too. So I'd love to hear where you're at right now with your intuition. Like, how far are you what you're able to deliver to your clients?
Yeah, so I would say, intuition is such an amazing thing. Like just a handful of years ago, like you said, there were things I was just doing that I didn't even know. An example was I'm home with my then boyfriend, now husband, and he ordered groceries on, Instacart, an app. And, he left his phone up in the living room and we were going to go on the back patio. And so I brought it down to him and I said, just keep your phone on you because sometimes the shopper will be in the store. And like today, for example, she's going to text you and say, hey, Michael, we're all out of red potatoes. Would you like me to swap them for Yukon Gold potatoes? And we just don't want her standing around the aisle waiting for us. So just keep your phone on you. 10, 15 minutes later, he looks up at me. He goes, did you just get this text? And I was like, what text? He said, the text from the shopper. I said, no, love, it's on your app. It's on your phone. I don't have anything to do with it. He said, well, she just texted me that they're all out of red potatoes and would I like Yukon Gold? And he said, did you know that was going to happen? I said, well, I didn't know, but I kind of knew. So I don't know how to answer that. So I think it was like I was running on that level of intuition where I would just pick up on stuff. And I worked with mentors. You and Rachel, I worked with another woman who's, she's actually an animal communicator, highly intuitive. She taught me some things that I can use to also tap into my intuition and strengthen it. And so now when I'm working with a client, I will get a really clear picture of that next level of what's possible for them. So it's usually something that they really resonate with, but maybe they think is just out of their reach. Or they'll be like, I've always wanted to do that. So I think where my skill set and my intuition comes in is like, hey, I can get that snapshot big picture of where to go and what's that next level for you, that next level up. And then we can strategize on some of the tangible in the real world. What do you got to do to get there? So it's been really fun to just help my clients open up and see what's possible for them, even things that they thought were just out of their reach or 5-10 years down the road. It's like, no, let's pull that in now. You can do that now. Absolutely. And then they have 250K months, or they totally transform the package or the way that they're delivering their services. And it feels so much more aligned for them and easy, free flowing. And that's vital to me, because I think as women, especially, we've got to figure out a new way to work. Essentially, the work world is based on the male 24-hour hormonal cycle, and we're not meant to get up every day and go, 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 so it's all tied in for me with ultimately helping women have a new way to work and show up that makes sense for them. So it's just been fun to see things evolve and see how I can use my intuition in more of a career businessy sense.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, even when we first started working with you, like right away we were like, Melissa is so intuitive, because you were teaching us more of the business structure of it, but everything was always wrapped around like flow and this like feminine form to it, and we love that so much. So I love to see like how that's evolved for you, and like getting into spirit animal communication. I like want to hear more about that. Like, was
Oh
she
my God.
communicating with your pup, or were you just learning to tap into your own totem spirit animals?
Well, I met her because I actually had a reading with her. We have, my husband and I have 3 dogs, and we had a 4th dog that passed away about 3 years ago. And our dogs, it's funny when people meet our dogs, they're like, your dog is like a little bit human or something like that. Like I feel like your dog is like communicating with me. And we always are like, we know exactly what our dogs want, and I was just fascinated by it. So I booked this reading with her. And she, again, as things always just happen to align, she told me that, she had it in the back of her mind that she was interested in teaching people how to do this. And she's like, you're super intuitive. Like, you're already communicating with your pets. Do you realize that? I said, well, again, kind of like the potato thing. It was something I was just doing. I didn't know what it was. So I ended up working with her in a more one-to-one setting. And this is just what made I had this moment with her that was just out of this world. We're on the phone, and that week prior, at my house, we back up to a creek and a nature preserve. And so we get wildlife that, are across the creek and we can see, and it's super fun. There had been this deer that was coming that had a limp on the left side. And so I was like, well, I'm going to try to do some energy work with this deer that's just across the creek from me. So I did that once or twice throughout the week, and then I didn't see the deer. I'm on the call with my mentor, and I'm facing out the window, and I said, oh my God, the deer is here. And next thing I know, like 6 or 7 deer all come, and they are all lined up across the creek, just facing my house. And I'm like, I tell Rose is her name. I said, Rose, they're all just standing here. She goes, she brought like her family. And then they all laid down. And so I took this picture while I was on the phone with her. I'm like, I have got to show you this. It was like they all showed up for their session. And it was amazing. So it was just a cool experience to tap into that. I feel like it helped me connect more with my own pets. And yeah, I kind of freaked out a little bit. And then I was like, no, this is what happens when you tap into that. It's not that big of a surprise, but it also is at the same time. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. One of my teachers, he always said, look for those things with expectancy, like trust that of course this is going to happen, but like at the same time it's always like it is that just like refreshing, like this is God, like this is like something that's bigger than me that's happening, but it's so cool that I'm bringing my awareness to it, and that I can kind of be the conduit for this healing energy to happen. And that's like literally one of the cutest and most beautiful the stories I've heard, you always have the craziest intuitive stories, but that's so special that
Yeah.
they're like, all right, we're all ready for our Reiki session.
I know. I was serious. I was like, I think they know they're about to get a little bit of Reiki, and they all just lined up. She goes, "Come on, family, we're gonna go do this." And they all just laid down, and we're ready to go. It was amazing.
And you've always been connected to the animals. At first, I thought you were going to say the story of the snake that went by you in your creek behind the other, like a couple years ago, because we have been working with Kundalini and activating
Oh
and
my
clearing the chakra
gosh.
system that way. And literally, like a week later, you're like, oh my gosh, when that snake just crawled right between your feet. And I'm like, wow, that is so crazy.
We were working on that Kundalini meditation. I was doing the meditation in the backyard, and it was literally in the middle of the meditation, and I looked down and there was a snake at my feet. I remember I like messaged you guys and was, you are not going to believe this. Why was I just doing your Kundalini meditation and a snake showed up at my feet? So yes, the animal connection is strong there.
And for our listeners who don't know, that Kundalini energy is often associated with the serpent because there is the metaphor that the serpent lies at the root chakra. And until you awaken your Kundalini energy, it activates that serpent that coils up all seven chakras to activate your energy system and then to rise, increase your consciousness and your psychic awareness and all that good stuff. So obviously, it happened to you.
I know. And yeah, just the tie there with the snake and everything. I instantly knew exactly what it was. And I think that's the interesting thing with readings and intuition is only the person that is receiving the reading or having the connection or seeing the snake, only they truly know the depths of what that means and if it's resonant or not. You know, a bunny could have walked by me at that time and oh, cute, a bunny. But the fact that it was a snake and we were doing the Kundalini meditation, it was, you know, that's the special thing about his intuition is really only the person receiving it on that side of it knows how impactful it is.
Oh, I love that so much because it just shows how divine each of our relationship with God really is. Is that when
Mm-hmm.
it really hits you in that level, like that's why it can move us so much and bring us to tears because each of us has that like really special relationship with God.
Yes, 100%. And it shows up differently. For some people, it's with animals in nature. For other people, it's through other people. It's, you know, in silence. It in art. I mean, it looks different for everyone. That's like you said, the coolest thing about it.
So, where in your life are you excited for right now? Are you working on any projects or what's on the forefront?
Yes, so I revamped the style of clients that I'm working with. I'm doing a little less of the corporate because I want to get more into the woo woo. And I'm just brought on a client that I'm going to be working with who's she's an amazing woman in the wellness space. So I'm going to be doing some brand strategy with her, and I'm very excited about that because a lot of her brand is tied to helping women of color and in that wellness space. Another client of mine has an amazing business called Science and Magic, and she is really in tune with the body and how to regulate your nervous system. And so working with these powerhouse women who are doing incredible things in the world has really been lighting me up. And especially when there's like that extra kind of cause behind it, or they're really pushing for something, not just business, not just revenue. There's a really strategic purpose, heart-driven purpose behind what they're doing. So I'm super excited for that. And you know, working with women along those lines. And I still do work with some men, but it just seems to be, you know, women businesses are seem to be who I end up working with the most. And sometimes that's just the way things fall. But yeah, I think, and eventually in probably the next year or so, my intuitive hit is that I'm going to be doing some things that are a little bit more public facing. So like I mentioned, I've built my business through referrals. I've been completely quiet, but I'm feeling that itch and kind of getting ready to start putting a little bit more out there myself. So I've got some things in the works on that front. And so you'll be seeing me a little bit more in the next handful of months show up online with some stuff. And I'm very excited for that.
Oh my goodness. That makes me so
Yes.
excited too. We need to see that beautiful face more on Instagram.
Yes, I've been so low key and behind the scenes with everything, but I feel like I'm definitely that investigator type. I like to have all my ducks in a row and a really strong foundation. And so
Oh,
I feel like I'm, ready for that.
I don't know if we've ever went through this, but do you know your human design type?
Yes, I am a 1-3, which is the investigator martyr. So I have to investigate everything. Like my mind can hold an incredible amount of information. So like I was just with some girlfriends this weekend and they're like, Mel will know what is like you want to ask about conspiracy theories or cooking or whatever,
I'm literally right behind you. I'm a 1-3 as well. And like literally I'm
oh,
constantly reading all the books and I'm always going to be learning something new.
always. If it's not like, oh, I started a candle business on the side quick and then I coach over here and I'm doing sales strategy, it's like it's a lot at times, but I think understanding my human design has also helped me embrace that aspect of it.
Yes.
And I'm a manifesting generator.
Yeah.
So that ties in with like I'm always going, creating and mastering lots of things and moving on to the next. So I will say that has been challenging in my career to niche down because I feel like at times, well, I definitely could help you with that and I could help you with that. So it's been an exercise of grounding a lot of that and understanding what I want to keep and what was just like my investigative one profile.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting seeing it from that perspective because Rachel's an MG too, but her profile is different. She's a 4-6. But I'd imagine that because she gets that inspiration to like want to try all these new things, it's like kind of like 0 to 100 with you because you actually want to like start creating and making that. Like I'm a projector, so I'm like, no, I'm just learning over here. I'm sitting back, but like
Yes.
you just like using that generator energy. And that's also interesting too, I was thinking because it makes so much sense that all your clients have kind of come to you when you get to respond like yes or no, I'm going to take on this client. Like that's kind of how it's been for you the whole time.
Yes, you were literally spot on. And I think that's part of why it works so well for me to just, you know, keep quiet and stay offline, so to speak, because I felt like things were flowing and progressing. And, but I think that next level of is, putting myself out there and offering something for people to respond to now. So I'm excited to see where that takes me. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's 0 to 100. I'm going to do this. I'm going to master it. I'm going to move on to the next thing. And so it can look chaotic from the outside, but on the inside, I'm just flowing and going with the next thing that I find.
I love that. It's exactly how you should be living the life. So I know
Exactly.
you're kind of still behind the scenes, but is there any way that our community can connect with you and get to work with your magic?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I haven't been doing a ton on there since I hosted my last retreat, but Woo and Do. So WOOANDDO. You can find me there. I'll respond to DMs. I've got some content up there, some sales strategy, some career strategy that you can tap into right away if you're interested in that. But yes, I would love to connect with people on my Woo and Do IG page.
Oh, I love that so much. You're just a big breath of fresh air. Like I think a lot of times when we think about like business, it can seem like contracting and like, oh, I gotta like come up with this like crazy strategy. And what we've loved about you so much is that you just communicate it in a way that's just so light and freeing and empowering that like, yeah, like all of us can do this. So thank you so much for
Thank
sharing that
you.
message.
Yes, thank you. I love you too, and I've loved to watch just where you two have grown to as well. It's been amazing to be a viewer and a client. So I've gotten both of the sides. It's been great.
Yeah. We just love, love, love you. And yeah, we're so excited for our community just to dive even deeper with your magic. So thank you all for listening today and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.